Hello, I'm Pam Hart, Executive Director and Assistant Dean for the Center for Animal Law Studies. We're excited to celebrate a special occasion. It's the one-year anniversary of the launch of our Global Law Alliance for Animals and the Environment. Joining me today is the Global Law Alliance team, Clinical Professor Erica Lyman and Senior Staff Attorney Nick Fromhurst. We launched the Global Law Alliance last fall as a collaboration between the Center for Animal Law Studies and our #1 ranked environmental law program here at Lewis and Clark Law School. The Global Law Alliance works to protect wild animals and wild spaces across the globe through the development, implementation, and enforcement of international law. Law students, both JDs and LLMs, actively participate in the work through our 2 legal clinics. We're so proud to have watched that vision become a reality over the past year, and we could not have done it without the support of so many who share our commitment to making the world a better place for animals. So with that, let's get started. It's hard to believe it's already been a year. When you think back to 1 year ago, how did you hope that the Global Law Alliance would contribute to protecting wild animals and the environment?
Thanks, Pam. I think what's so awesome about what we do at the Global Law Alliance is bring together sort of animal law expertise, environmental expertise, and what that means in the space for wildlife in particular, that we're protecting both the animals and the habitats upon which they rely. So really being able to think comprehensively about the protection of wild animals, and build a larger toolbox, a legal toolbox from which to draw to do the work that needs to be done on behalf of wild animals. So that's been really exciting, and to be able to develop that over the course of the last year has been an amazing experience.
Thank you, Erica. And this one's for both of you. Can you each share some examples of the type of work that the Global Law Alliance has been engaged in over the past year?
Kick it off, Nick.
Okay, absolutely. Well, one sort of constant part of our work, or a thread that we're always engaged in, is supporting effective implementation of the law to further protections for wild animals. And a lot of times that means supporting judges and prosecutors involved in addressing wildlife crime. So a lot of that is related to wildlife trafficking, but there can also be other crimes related to wildlife that might not ultimately involve in animals being trafficked. And so over the last year, we've worked with prosecutors and judges in several countries in Latin America and in Africa. Those countries over the past year include Bolivia, Peru, Malawi, Liberia, Ghana, and Nigeria. And we've done in each of those countries virtually a series of collaborative workshops directly with prosecutors, judges, and other folks involved in the enforcement apparatus, and with local partner organizations to share with judges and prosecutors and these other officials best practices, ways to maximize the use of national legislation that's in place, and just generally to raise the visibility of wildlife trafficking and the tools that are afforded in both national and international instruments to combat this very serious phenomenon. In addition, or complementing these workshops, we've also produced a series of reports and recommendations, and those cover a whole range of issues, some very technical, some that are broader reaching. So examples would include a best practices sentencing submission guidance document for prosecutors in Malawi. So this document walks prosecutors through, steps that they should follow when asking for certain sentencing outcomes in wildlife crime cases, with an eye to deterrence, with an eye to proportionality, with an eye to justice. Other examples of written documents that we've produced for national use are mutual legal assistance guidebooks. We've done this for a few different countries. So ways that prosecutors can seek assistance from counterparts in other countries when evidence or witnesses or other elements may be in another country outside of their jurisdiction. And then sometimes just kind of shortlisting candidates for legal reform when we've uncovered or identified certain vulnerabilities in national legislation. And that's a bit of advocacy as well as just sort of guidance. So that would be an example.
Thank you, Nick. How about you, Erica? Is there anything you'd like to share?
Well, so I think Nick did a really great job of giving a sense of the kind of work that we do to create enabling environments for the enforcement of both international and then domestic wildlife law. Also, on behalf of wildlife, we do a lot of, as Nick started to suggest, advocacy work, right? So where we see that wild animals are in particular peril, either a particular population of wild animals, or maybe a species that is being impacted by some human-induced threat. We use legal tools to intervene on behalf of those animals. And so examples include things like using opportunities under US law to draw attention to the plight of certain animals. For example, we have filed a Peli petition that seeks to draw attention to the exploitation of pangolins in China, largely for medicinal purposes, and the wildlife trafficking, the pangolin trafficking that's associated with that demand that is really causing a pangolin conservation crisis in Africa, as those pangolins are so high value and then move on into trade in China. So using, in this case, a US legal tool to draw attention to and to ask for recourse on behalf of a particular species that is suffering impacts due to a very specific type of end use. Sort of other examples of that from our last year of work include, as Nick mentioned, looking at where specific species might be suffering, potential harm from international trade, or where there's evidence of demand for a particular species, looking at whether CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, offers a protective mechanism for those particular species. Looking at where development projects, and that could be mining projects, oil and gas projects, natural resource extraction projects that we all know have major environmental impacts, but that also are very acutely destructive to the habitat for wild animals, and where we might intervene to focus on a particular project, whether we're working with local communities or other non-governmental organization allies to raise awareness and to protect habitat, to protect those specific wild animals. So we really try to be comprehensive in our approach, and that means not just sort of doing the petitioning and the sort of employing the legal tools, but also paying attention to what it takes on the ground in terms of national legislation and enforcement sort of apparatus to, like I said, create those enabling environments to be as protective of animals as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you both for those fantastic examples about your work. And I have one final question. So as you both know, our mission here at the Center for Animal Law Studies is to train the next generation to become effective advocates for animals. Can you talk to me a little bit about the opportunities that the Global Law Alliance provides to our students?
Well, so I think this is a great question, and we just spent a few minutes talking about all the work we do and all the benefits that that has for wild animals. We make sure, in addition to working for animals, that we're working for students, right? So in all of these projects and in all of these situations and all the work we do, we incorporate both our JD students and our LLM students in our work, and really trying to bring to them experiences that put them front and center in the international wildlife space. So they may have experiences where they're working with government allies that we might be partnering with and writing documents, supporting policy initiatives with research, writing laws, looking at ways to amend or improve legislation, working with sort of international institutions, like sometimes the treaty bodies themselves, where students are getting experience really in the nitty gritty of this is what international law making looks like. It could be, writing the petitions themselves, having students do that work from an advocacy perspective and directly with our sort of organizational allies. It might be international organizations or very small local NGOs or organizations in particular areas. But students are involved beginning to end and interacting with the community working in this space, which gives them a leg up as they sort of enter the work world and build their careers. In normal times, when we're not on Zoom and we're not having virtual international meetings, we work really hard to provide opportunities for students to attend international meetings as well, which can be a very transformative experience for a student, and can really sort of set students up for the rest of their career in terms of the relationships they build and the experience that they get that a lot of folks don't have until much later in their careers.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that answer. And thank you both so much for joining me today. And congratulations on the 1-year anniversary of the Global Law Alliance. And we can't wait to see what you accomplish for wild animals and the environment in year 2 and beyond. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.